Alrighty guys, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to go over the UltraGauge I have in my Subaru Crosstrek. So we'll delve into it and I'll kind of explain what it does, what I like to monitor, why I have it, and why you should get it for your car. So stay tuned. Alrighty guys, so we're going to get right into it. So right now I have the UltraGauge VM 1.4. That is just a specific version that allows you to monitor more things than the standard UltraGauge would. So right now on my UltraGauge I have it set up with 6 different things that I can monitor, but you can flick through many different pages. So that's the 2nd page, 3rd page, 4th page, 5th page. So there's up to 7 pages of stuff you can monitor. Obviously I have only my 1 page set up because this is all I need, but if you kind of run out of space on the first screen, you can go on to the next, and so on and so forth. Okay, so obviously the UltraGauge is plugged into your OBD2 port, and it monitors directly live data from the car. So obviously nothing is really displaying on there right now as the car is just on. The ignition hasn't been turned over and the motor's not running, so we'll start it up and I'll get into it. Alrighty guys, so as you can see the car is idled down a little bit. Actually right here you can tell that it is reading the RPM here, so it's still a little bit high right now, but it'll get going down. It's cold outside. So let me kind of explain what I monitor on the UltraGauge and why. So in the top left I have short trim bank 1, which monitors, if I'm correct, cylinder 1 on the engine. So what that does is it monitors how lean or rich the car is running. So when I was having the issue with the car actually running lean, this is why I bought this UltraGauge initially, was to kind of give me live data what the motor was doing. So at idle, when this kind of warms up and gets to operating temp, this will be around negative 0.78 or 0, give or take. That is a normal level, but Subarus, if I'm correct again, have a leeway of plus 25 or negative 25, kind of lean or rich. But as the car is tuned, that is all kind of depending, but it is at a safe level. I have checked with my tuner. The car's running great, so that is a nice kind of safety thing I like to monitor. It's very similar to what would be on an ACCESSPORT doing cylinder roughness, if I'm correct, but I've had that on my UltraGauge since initially trying to get tuned back in May, and it's been fantastic with just a bit of peace of mind. Okay, so on the top right I have the mass airflow sensor, and that is monitoring the air that's actually passing by the sensor, and it's in G's there. So when I am cruising or wide open throttle, you can see that value go up to, I've had it up to about 70 G's before. I've seen people have it much higher, but obviously I'm not beating on the car. But that is pretty much just telling me that the mass airflow sensor is working and it's getting air, and I just monitor that for consistent readings. So after a certain amount of time you get used to what the car is reading, and I kind of know the range of that the motor's acting healthy, that the sensors are acting healthy. As I was saying, a short trim bank 1, negative 0.78, and that is a nice healthy thing at idle. Okay, so the third thing I like to monitor just under short trim bank 1 is the oil temperature, and that is in Celsius. They obviously have it in Fahrenheit if you're in the States, but so the oil is reading at 64 degrees Celsius. When I've really been driving the car hard at long periods of times, it gets up to around 98 degrees, but it hasn't really ever gone over that, which is good. Okay, so just beside that I have the engine coolant, and again that kind of stays at the same level as oil. That's never really gone up above 100, so that is another thing I like to monitor, is oil and coolant, just so the car isn't overheating, things stay nice and cool. Alright, so just under the oil is the intake air temperature. So obviously, as I have headers, exhaust, the hood scoop on the car, and I do have the stock intake, so to speak, but I do have custom piping, a charcoal delete, and the AEM dry flow filter. I do like to just monitor the air intake temperature, just so that I know that cold air is getting in the car. So obviously the car's been running for a little bit, and I was just driving it. There is heat in the engine bay, but as you step on the throttle and go for a nice little drive, this air intake temperature will drop significantly when it's really cold in the winter. I've had the inside of the intake being like -2 degrees, so that's a cool little thing to monitor, and it's another peace of mind. All right, so the final thing I like to monitor is just RPM, and that's just for seeing if the car has an issue with idle, if there's any roughness. Right now it's extremely consistent, 856, 859, you name it, just to see if it's kind of bogging down or bouncing up and down in the RPM range. But also you can look at it when you do a downshift, upshift, you name it. Just another thing I like to monitor, but that is the main 6 things I like to monitor on my UltraGauge. Alrighty guys, so I've just turned off the car, and I'm just going to kind of explain a couple more things about the UltraGauge. So it's off, sorry. Because Cobb doesn't make a access port for this car, they did make a small range of access ports for, I believe, the 07 to 08 NA 2.5i Impreza, but it was very limited, and you couldn't kind of monitor to the extent of what this thing does. This UltraGauge can be used on really any car that has an OBD2 port. So it's not just Subarus, so I do recommend really anyone, just for peace of mind at the end of the day, to get one. But if you're modified as well, it's a really nice addition to your car. And another kind of interesting tip is, if you have a USDM car, obviously you can get an access port, and that is probably the thing I would get if you are modifying your car as an access port. With a good Pro Tune, AOS, all that kind of stuff, but I won't get into that. But if you do have a JDM ECU in your car, or your car is swapped with a JDM motor, you need the corresponding ECU. Cobb actually doesn't support JDM ECU, so the next best thing, obviously, with the appropriate gauges, like through AEM, boost, oil pressure, AFR, would be getting one of these. It is very similar to a Cobb ACCESSPORT, obviously without the tuning capabilities, but it can monitor a whole variety of different things. And I will go upstairs now and kind of go through the manual and read out a couple more things that would be good to monitor. But this is just a few things that I like to monitor on my Crosstrek as it is modified. But at the end of the day, if you have a non-modified car, it is a nice little addition to your engine bay and your interior, and also to understand what your car is doing. Alrighty guys, so I was just about to edit the video, and I noticed that I had missed actually a whole whack of stuff. So I'm going to go through it now and just explain a little bit more. So here's the manual for the UltraGauge. It's pretty thick actually, but regardless, some of the key points that I did miss is that actually the UltraGauge acts like a code reader and a scan tool as well. So when I was having issues with the car running lean initially, that was due to the PCV valve, the hose off the PCV had come undone somehow, and then I later on figured out about it. But when that was happening with the car, I was obviously displaying a code, so I could understand what the code was, and I could clear it and see if it would come back. So that is a really nice benefit to the UltraGauge that it offers. You can read codes, see codes that are stored in your ECU, clear them, you name it. So it is a bit like a diagnostic tool, as well as a gauge to monitor parameters of your car. Alrighty guys, so some of the things that I pulled out of the manual that are more interesting things that you can monitor on the UltraGauge. One of them being MAP, which is manifold absolute pressure. Second one being throttle position. Third is distance with the check engine light on. Fourth is instantaneous miles per gallon. Next is average miles per gallon. Next is trip distance. Lastly, another one would be cool is distance to empty. So when you do that, when you do the initial setup of your vehicle on the UltraGauge, it asks you for engine size and your fuel tank size, and it kind of calibrates it based on that. At the end of the day, UltraGauge is a really great tool for your Subaru or any other car really out there that is OBD2 compliant. But yeah, besides that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.